something for breathing? Yeah, sure. Whatever. I'm like medicated. It's fine. Okay, it's fine. Well, yeah, there's no transparency. Slide down one more. It's working. That's like my focus kind of more. So the like my initial like the people like golf that are
although we don't have any because they're dangerous. So we recommend people start driving instead of banning.
Good evening, everyone. Hi. Feel free to come take a seat. We don't bite. You can sit in front. Everyone's really friendly here. Thank you for coming this evening. My name is Elisa Sepulveda. I am the Managing Director for the Riveter. How many of you have not been here before? So a lot of you. Welcome. If it's your first time, we're very glad that you're here. We are the modern union for women and people of color. So we move women and people of color forward in their careers. We have a very large entrepreneurial bent, which is how I got to meet the lovely Allison, who's next to me, because we are a venture-backed company. We opened here in Austin in March, and very pleased to have this panel tonight to talk about how you entrepreneurs can leverage the amazing programs that are located here in Austin to be able to work with the government. So I'm going to turn it over to Allison, who will give us a little rundown of what we're going to talk about.
Hi, thank you all for coming. I just wanted to give a special shout out, thank you to the Riveter. I have really enjoyed coming to work here. So I have a co-working membership here and just getting to know all the folks associated with it. I also wanted to send a special shout out to Army Futures Command, who has generously done the live streaming, as well as my other government partners, Defense Innovation Unit, Re3D, who is our entrepreneur here, and SBIR recipient, AFWERX. And so they have been really instrumental in helping me get acclimated to Austin as I arrived here as the Southwest Regional Director for the National Security Innovation Network. And so most importantly, though, I wanted to say thank you to all of you. My mission is to bring out government problems to the entrepreneurial community and academic. And so now that you all are here and interested in learning about government opportunities, it is really exciting for me to get to share with you. So, thank you.
Thanks. All right. Come on up, everybody. Thanks to I don't think I'll need a mic because I'm pretty loud. So thank you so much for coming this evening. We're going to start on the end. Why don't you introduce yourself? Sure.
let us know who you are, what you do.
I talk loud too, so if you can't hear me in the back, give me a wave. But I am Major Jessica Steinhoff, and I am active duty. We have AFWERX is kind of a conglomerate. Jen will share more about that, but with active duty and guard and reserve. So I am one of the active duty that helps AFWERX, and I'm actually stationed down in San Antonio at Randolph Air Force Base. And my function on the team is I'm one of the contracting officers. So when you submit your solutions, I'm going to be the one that's going to kind of do the legwork and review your proposals and eventually put you on contract with the government. So that's a little bit about me.
Excellent, thank you.
I probably do. So I'm Jenn Mars. I'm the Director of Outreach and Ecosystem Development for AFWERX Austin. I come from the Texas Air National Guard, so just like Jessica said, the AFWERX team is active duty, reserve, and guard. So that's kind of the makeup of our team. We have about 10 people in the Austin hub full time. And really we're just like the interaction between the public and the government, or the Air Force in general, in answering your questions and making sure that you understand the processes and the ways that you can do business with the Air Force.
So as mentioned, I'm Allison Scarborough, and I'm the Regional Director for the National Security Innovation Network here in the Southwest. I cover Texas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, Arkansas, and Louisiana. And so my organization really works with early stage entrepreneurs, startups, and the academic community. So we have programming which brings those entities to the government to help solve problems.
Hi everyone, my name is Zach Walker. I'm the Texas lead for an organization called the Defense Innovation Unit. We are a DoD organization that has 3 missions. One is to accelerate the adoption of commercial technology into the Department of Defense, to transform the DoD's capabilities, and then to grow what's called the National Security Innovation Base. And that is all of you that are here who either are working with the DoD, want to work with the DoD, just simply feel like this is your time to be involved in this great power competition and national security and to really be a part of that. That's the National Security Innovation Base. And that's what we're here to do. And I'm in Austin. I've been here for about 3 years.
Good evening, thanks so much for,
I think that's
this is on. Push the button, can you hear me now? I can speak louder.
Use that, you got it.
Awesome.
I'm Samantha, and I am an officer in the Air National Guard on the weekends. And during the week, I have the honor of being a co-founder and catalyst for Re3D, where we make the world's largest affordable industrial 3D printers. We start at the size of a toilet and go as big as your budget. And thanks to the support of AFWERX and NSF and our SBIRs, we've been able to modify our machines so we can 3D print from trash. So now we're printing from trash and non-trash as we think about how we dream big and print huge together.
Cool. So let's start at like 0. There are a lot of acronyms. So why don't we start with, can you define what a SBIR is and what the meaning to our entrepreneurs would be?
You guys are all looking at me. Okay, so
I can tell you what it stands for.
Yeah.
Small Business Innovation Research Grants,
Yes.
which are non-dilutive capital.
Bingo. Okay, so, well, that's what the acronym is. And then to go a little bit deeper, there are 3 SBIR cycles a year. They're every 4 months, and that's your way. What the Air Force does is we post what's called a special topic out into, the internet, right? And you can find that on afwerx.af.mil. If you go right to the website and you click on for industry, and you'll see SBIR, and you can kind of click on it, and it'll kind of give you more information. So I'm just going to kind of top level it, but during those open periods when you can submit a proposal, you'll look at the special topic that's out there and see if what your business does can help solve one of the Air Force's problems. And then you would submit that proposal during the open period, and I have my notes here because I didn't want to not tell you the correct dates. So
I have the dates.
Oh, sweet.
Guess what?
Cha-ching.
Special
Make a great
surprise.
team.
Next SBIR open topic starts tomorrow.
Cool.
So what that means,
Surprise.
is that during that open period or that open topic is when your company would basically look at what the Air Force needs and then submit your proposal to the SBIR website. So if you go to our website, the afwerx.af.mil, you can kind of read all the specifics as to what is required to put into your proposal, and then from there, the Air Force will look at it and figure out if it meets one of those all of those criteria, and if we would want to move forward with potentially a SBIR, Small Business Innovation Research, phase 1. You want me to just dig right in? Like, what is that?
Yes,
no?
so I just learned about the phases last week.
Okay.
Why don't we explain to them what the different phases are? How many of you are just starting your company? Like early stage, like pre-seed? Okay, who's at like seed level? A couple of y'all? Okay. In between? Okay, cool.
Okay, so what a SBIR phase 1 is, it's basically where you would present to the Air Force, and the Air Force, you would present your solution and a proof of concept, and you would basically do a preliminary report and then a final report, and basically pitch to the Air Force what your solution could bring to the fight. So that's a 3-month contract award, and it's for a total of $50,000. So that's kind of the seed, right, the seed money. There's also something called phase 2. So once you've basically presented your phase 1 solution and the Air Force has accepted that into the SBIR program, then you can apply for a phase 2. And a phase 2 is basically your prototype phase. So that can be anywhere from a 3-month to a 12-month to an 18-month. I think there's even some SBIRs that are for 24 months. But what that is that's up to $750,000. And if you look on the website, you'll see there is something called a direct to phase 2, but that's kind of really in depth. So you just read that, and you can always reach out to us, and we can kind of explain it more in detail. So the idea is for you to pitch your solution, then create a prototype, and during your phase 2, you will find a government sponsor. So that's the key to the phase 2, is basically reaching out into the Air Force through either AFWERX or through, we've had our first Collider event where we brought SBIR phase 1s in, and then it was helpful for those phase 1s to find their government sponsor. And what they'll do then is, through your relationship with your sponsor throughout your phase 2 period, you will develop that prototype, and then at the end of that prototype, you're hoping that the Air Force will then take that and want to move to a SBIR phase 3, and then field that and make that a production type item or service or innovation.
So that was a lot of information,
yes.
But just to give you like the facts, which I think are important. Since 2018, we've had 4,000 companies apply to Air Force problems. Of those 4,000, 60% of those had never done business with the Air Force. And of those 4,000, we picked up 1,000 of them. And that's been about $250 million of non-dilutive capital that we've given out to the community. So I just want to tell you that we are actually doing things. We are giving money. And I'm really proud of that. So.
As an entrepreneur, I think it's important to note that a phase 2 is $750,000. That's right, $750,000. And then there's additional what we call supplements that you can get against that with these SBIRs to increase that threshold. And we're a little bit biased because, well, I love the Air Force, obviously, but there are other SBIRs that you can apply to as well. So if you see something in this call tomorrow and you're like, shucks, this really isn't in line with my company's commercial glide path, check out the other SBIR websites and the other agencies, EPA, NOAA, FDA, there might be NIH, there might be an organization that's a better fit. Having done both NSF now and AFWERX, I can tell you that AFWERX route is a lot less painless. Like, if you want a minimum amount of paperwork to do, apply for a DIU opportunity or apply for AFWERX, which is very similar. It's going to save you a lot of time and grief. The acceptance rate is also much higher. With NSF, it's less than 6%, and you're competing also against thousands of companies. You have resources here in Austin that are bodies actually responsible for the selection who want to help you and coach you and host events like this to help you walk the dog. So please take advantage of that. Feel free to reach out to myself or our company if you have any questions about the process. 3 things you have to do, sometimes people aren't aware of, is you have to apply for these federal codes. One is your SAMS number, DUNS, and CAGE. It sounds a little bit confusing, and there's going to be groups that'll tell you that for $50,000 they'll do it for you. You don't need to. I'm an idiot. Not to say my teammates are, but we figured it out. We've made all the mistakes along the way, so we're happy to help you walk through that. But if you think you want to apply for an SBIR, go ahead and start your registration, because that takes a little bit of time, and you don't want to miss the opportunity before it closes. And when they say a government sponsor, that's a customer, right? So what AFWERX is trying to do, unlike a lot of the other SBIRs, is they're trying to help you find an organization within the military that will buy your product. And all their metrics are based around that. They're actually helping you not only get grant funding, but to have reoccurring revenue from a government contract.
I want to talk a little bit about DIU and what your process is like. And
yeah, sure. So we do things completely differently. Not that it's bad. It's actually
15 deck.
yeah. I mean, it's similar, right? But it's great to have more than one option, right? There are many different paths that you can follow to work with the DoD. If anyone says that there is a single way to work with the DoD, they're lying to you. There's many ways. So for DIU, what we wanted to do was we wanted to work at startup speed in a way that was friendly to startups and to venture investors and all those folks, those that don't want to become traditional government contractors, don't want to do 80-page solicitation responses. So we pioneered something that we call the commercial solutions opening. Again, we just made that up, which apparently you can do that in the government. And that is the minimum amount of bureaucracy required to put around the law, which explains how you can award a certain kind of agreement in the government. The way that works for all of you is that instead of being solution first, it's problem first. So we'll have on our website a problem statement, and it could be as small as a sentence, it could be several paragraphs. It depends on the minimum amount of information we need to put out there so that you know exactly how to respond. And then when you do respond, we just want a 5-page white paper, a 15-slide deck, and I think it's the same for SBIR.
They have 100-second video now.
That's not, we don't require videos, so if you're shy, you may want to go with us. But you just throw it out there. You just respond with your standard pitch deck. You don't need to waste time coming up with some government formatted thing that
Sam's done
that you do.
in Cage as well.
Sam Dunn's in Cage. No, so we can't get around that, right? That's for working with the government. But we ask you to send that in.
You guys compete it too?
So it is considered competition for us.
Okay.
So we put it on our website for anyone from the Bay Area to Beijing to see. It's not a secret, and we want to know what your solutions are to the problem. And once that solicitation closes, which is open, and it is specific, so it's not open. It's specific to our problem. It'll be up there for anywhere from a week to a month. And once that closes, our goal is to have you on contract within 60 days, and that can be up to $100 million.
wow.
That's a lot of money.
Now,
That's a lot of money.
your mileage may vary, right? So we've
Yeah.
done projects as small as 100,000. We've done some much larger. We've awarded to 10-person startups as well as to the largest defense contractors that exist, right? So it's very flexible. We have done far fewer awards. We've done about 140 since 2016, and we've moved about $400 million in contracts, which again, not insignificant, but certainly not quite to the scale that AFWERX has done. It's different, right? And it depends on what's best for you. If you're a Series A, B, C company that has pretty strong revenue, strong customer set, you're solving problems for the Fortune 1000, and you just want to solve the same problems for DoD, DIU's a really good path for you.
How early stage do you invest for DIU?
For us, it really is about if you can solve the problem. And so we have awarded to pre-seed stage 10-person startups as well as Fortune 100 companies. It really is about, do you have a solution in the marketplace? Are you solving a problem? And for us, that's really the biggest thing. Are you solving a problem in the commercial marketplace? We do not want to make government contractors, right? So if you can't survive without government money, we are not a good fit for you. We want to be a very small, but very important early customer for you so that you can then help grow your business.
When he said CSO, that acronym is Commercial Solutions Opening. So that's why he's saying it's got to be commercially available, and then we'll bring it in so you're then that small piece, or we're your small piece. So, yeah.
And AFWERX does those as well.
Yes.
Is that just products and research, or do you do research as well? And you guys like?
It's complicated. I mean, in general, it's not research. It is considered R&D in the sense of the funding and all of kind of the legal stuff that we do. It is prototyping, right? But in general, what we are looking for is commercial technology, hardware, software, in one of our focus areas. And of course, that can include some integration work. But in general, the idea is that we want to give you a commercial contract, just as you would working with any of the other major companies in the world. Commercial terms, negotiable IP, as quickly as possible.
How many of you are commercializing technology out of a university?
Good question.
Great, then we don't have to talk about that.
We help with that too, just if you change your mind.
So we talk about open topics. Our solution is unique because we're actually solving a topic for the actual soldiers and veterans. We're not actually solving it for a particular
would probably be, so like our special topic is specific to the Air Force, but as we had kind of noted, there's SBIR programs for each of the agencies, right? So the Army has a SBIR program, the Air Force has a SBIR program. Who's the other ones? Like you said, Marine, you know. Well,
every federal agency,
every
NASA
federal
does,
agency.
higher acceptance than NSF. Seriously consider it.
Yeah.
But we mentor a lot of companies now in the SBIR process, because I just think it's a fabulous way to support your R&D and to find a customer while staying bootstrapped, as we did. And one thing that we like to do with the companies we work with is to think about what your technology is and how it could apply to maybe more than one federal agency. Yeah. So for example, I make a 3D printer that we're working on to leverage trash. So that means I'm a candidate for a NOAA opportunity to say 3D print coral reefs, for the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, USDA, which I'm told has over 60% acceptance rate because you could help agriculture. And so start to think about like all the different ways your technology could be utilized, and use that as your filter as you're sorting through these opportunities.
Does OSD and VA, because that might be what she's asking for, is OSD and VA, do they do SBIRs?
I believe that VA does. I know they have an innovation program. I haven't seen a SBIR drop. I can look into that if you shoot me an email.
Yeah. I would also tell you that Army Applications Lab, Army Futures Command, same thing. They look at, so if a company applies to an AFWERX SBIR, there's been multiple companies that the Army's interested in as well. So just because you apply to one or the other doesn't mean that we don't talk. We have a really great relationship, and so there are multiple companies that we're interested in together. And then there's a company right now that's on phase 2 with AFWERX, but NASA's looking into it, the Army's looking into it, the Marine Corps is looking into it, the Texas Military Department here in Texas. So it's okay if you apply to one or the other. We kind of look at what's going around.
So talking about that, do you socialize some of these solutions or some of these entrepreneurs once they apply to your program, like a venture capitalist would? Like, maybe I don't fit with this VC's thesis, but they would give me a warm introduction to another one.
Oh, absolutely. So I'm sorry, I'm a little under the weather, but with AFWERX, we have multiple ways to do business with us through challenges and SBIR and CSOs and all these things. It doesn't matter if you don't think you fit particularly. We look at all of that, and if we think that it fits better, that's why it's magical what's happening at Capital Factory with this DoD ecosystem, right? Because we all talk, we're all friends, and I think that's what makes this really amazing. So if you apply to something, sometimes we'll look at it and say, hey, this company has a really compelling solution, and so does this one. And if they combined or they talked and they came to the table with something different, that would be absolutely perfect. We've done that before. So it's really this really collaborative environment. So I would just say, yes, we do.
There's also, you also get put into a database. So for our phase 1 SBIR with AFWERX, the customer that we have now for our phase 2 in the DoD had previously worked with the SBIR AFWERX cohort. And he searched the database then when our cohort started for 3D printing companies. So the previous company he'd worked with and backed did augmented reality. And he's like, hey, if I use 3D printing, I can make physical things people could use for mixed reality scenarios to expand my research. So he found us, we didn't find him, but we would have never made that connection if it hadn't been, being part of that ecosystem. And then AFWERX helped us line up all the pieces so that we could work together on this larger opportunity for this project.
I was going to say, I very much, despite if you apply for a SBIR or a grant, I will socialize your company if it's a technology I know other agencies have an interest in. I've been in this field for quite a while, so I do a lot of reach back to DC and other elements when I am really excited about your tech, which I've done for a couple of Austin folks. And then, for example, the Riveter, I was very excited about the Riveter, and so I told all my friends about it.
We're about to become members.
Yeah.
AFWERX will be here as well.
So I love to hear about what you're up to, and then I definitely share it. So
Allison's amazing. I'm not saying that because she's next to me. She does. She is very involved. She's the reason why we're here, right? Because she started to do the scouting and walking around and saying, hey, we need to be part of this community. So we do collaborate, we do talk. So, yes. Allison, she's good.
The one thing I want to say, don't know if it's really been said, but you're not limited if you apply for a SBIR. You can certainly apply for our work. In no way should you feel like, well, I'm just going to go for the SBIR. I'm just going to go for DIU. Go for it all. I mean, it's just like voting in Chicago, early and often.
There's also I don't know how it is for AFWERX, maybe you can speak to it, but for some of the other DoD SBIRs, you can get a phase 1 with one, and then for your phase 2, move to a different agency. So I've known people that have had a Navy SBIR, and then there was more money available and a better match for the Missile Defense Agency.
Yeah.
So then they jumped ship. Well, I guess that's a bad pun, but the MDA was like, hey, you've been vetted, and so they accepted him for a phase 2 and a supplement from that. I don't know how AFWERX does that.
We'd be able to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
You change it just a little bit.
Yeah.
Do it again. I'm not trying to. I'm really proud of AFWERX, right? And I think most of my friends here would say the same thing. But what's amazing about us being here in Austin is if you have questions, say you don't get accepted the first time around, we'll tell you what you can change to make it better, right? So you actually have people you can reach out to. It's not just a 1-800 number. Like, I'm there most days, and most of my coworkers are as well. So you just do that really slow, awkward walk by. We'll make eye contact. Happens all the time. And they'll be like, I'm looking for Jen. And they'll be like, really? That's me, right? So it happens all the time. So I'm saying you have people to help you through this process. Utilize us, talk to us. That's why we're here. We're trying to make this better for everyone. So,
What's your address?
We're at Capital Factory.
oh yeah, we're in Capital Factory, 701 Brazos Street.
That's it, yep.
These guys are on the 8th floor. Go there first. No, I'm just kidding. AFWERX is on the bottom level. We're like at the front. So we're like the first thing you see. It's very annoying because they think we're Capital Factory. We are not. We are AFWERX. We do not know what events are happening at 3 o'clock. But we're right. We want to be seen. We want to be talked to. We're right where the entrance is on Brazos Street. So come see us. Thank you.
So let's talk a little bit about the process, and maybe you can kind of kick this off. Like, how did you figure this out? What did the timeline look like, and what things did you need to have in order besides your SAM, DUNS, and cage number?
Actually, can you start with those? How long did it take you to get the SAMs, DUNS, and cage sorted out?
So, if we've met any of you all before, you'll know that we learn by doing the wrong thing and making like subsequent mistakes and then kind of vectoring. So it took us a really long time, and this is why we're so passionate about sharing the SBIR opportunity and being part of the roadshow here in the U.S. and Puerto Rico, because I had heard about SBIR, but honestly it seemed like a lot of work. You hear about these things you have to apply for, you go online and Google how to do it, and someone is trying to phish your email and telling you they have to you have to sign this huge invoice, and then you do it wrong, and you're on the phone with a 1-800 number. But it's getting better. I had actually heard about SBIR and didn't pursue it because I just got overwhelmed when I went to the site. There's actually 2 SBIR websites too. There's SBIR.gov, which is a lot of the non-DoD entities, and then SBIR Defense. We were just talking about this. Go to the AFWERX webpage. They make it easy for you to find the opportunity so you don't have to navigate that. But it's a bit overwhelming. So I'd heard about it, I discounted it. The companies I knew that got it I thought were just way cooler than me. But we went on GSA. So that's how the government buys things with their credit card. And through that, we had to get those numbers, and we had some federal customers. So that's why we did it. Fast forward, I had a friend that did this really cool thing called Alteros, where he has big balloons that are like mobile cell phone networks. And Ben and I were in the CEO were in an accelerator, and he's like, I don't know why you haven't done SBIR. It's like the greatest thing in the world. So I applied for an NSF opportunity. I didn't know it was so hard, and got rejected. And then I went to reapply like 6 months later. They only do it a couple times a year. And with NSF, the cutoff is like 6 a.m. in the morning. I don't know who does that, because every other pitch competition you apply to is like 6 p.m. So I finished my application late that night, go to bed for a couple hours, wake up at 7 to submit it, and it says I'm locked out. And I'm like, what the freak? And so I'm like crying, because I'd gotten letters of support and didn't know what to do. I felt like such an idiot. And so I called my friend Ben, and he's like, hey, I'm going to put you in touch with my program manager. Very similar to AFWERX. Like, these are real human beings that run these programs that want you to succeed. And she's like, lectures me, and she says, well, you're dumb. You've had 6 months to like get the timeline right. But she said, I'll tell you what, we're going to fly you in, we'll pay you to be a reviewer for phase 1. So you can see all the people that you would have been competing against and how they got selected. So I couldn't do it, I had a military commitment actually, but my co-founder did it, was great. We applied next round, got in. Fast forward, that's how we learn about phase 2. In the meantime, DIU and all these things are standing up. Let me tell you, my phase 2 NSF was 87 pages. It was 15 pages of work for me to get the AFWERX one. So much less overhead. So anywho, we were in the NSF cohort. You get matched with a program manager then that becomes your advocate, and she's constantly making intros for us and helping us find resources. Fast forward, we got a phase 2, and then our program manager is like, hey dinglings, there's these things called supplements, which we didn't know about. So we've since done 2 $150,000 supplements and one $500,000 supplement.
Wow.
So that one phase 2 turned into like $1.5 million. Highly recommended. So along the way we heard about AFWERX, realized it was a lot easier, and it's just been great to work with people in the community. So please come see me. Don't miss deadlines. They are hard. These people have a lot to do, but know like there are real people, like Jen said, that want to coach you in the process.
So what will happen this round, right, is the open topic will close on 24 or 25 October? 23 October.
23 October.
So 24 September to 23 October, that's your timeline to submit the proposal. What
At
we'll
6
do...
a.m.? Is that at 6 a.m.?
I don't think it's at
5:30.
AM, PM, you know, who knows.
Good question.
But yes,
We'll find
don't
out
miss
for
the
you.
deadline. It's on the website.
Don't be that company. I'm told every round there's one.
Yeah, exactly. So what we'll do then is we will take all 300, 400, 500, 600 proposals, and then our technical team will work on evaluating those and seeing if indeed your solution did fit what the special topic called for. And what we've been doing now is we've been doing what we call contracting sprints, where we come together as a contracting entity and we take those technical proposals that were down selected and they basically get a thumbs up. And then we go for a week and we basically do a jam session and we put all those phase 1s or phase 2s on contract. The last SBIR sprint, we did a mini one in Austin. We did 20 contracts in a week. And when you tell a contracting person in an operational cons that you're gonna do 20 contracts in a week that you really haven't even looked at yet, they're gonna look at you and say you're crazy. But we've done it. We've done it a few times now. And then Boston, there was a sprint in Boston where they brought even more contracting officers. We had a small little cohort because we did it kind of our own little thing for Air Education Training Command. But Boston did the whole all of AFWERX special topics. They awarded over 400 contracts in just over like 2 weeks.
Wow.
For phase 1s and phase 2s. Because the Secretary of the Air Force over Acquisitions, Dr. Roper, he is really, really focusing on building up our industrial base, and we know that the small businesses are how to do that. So if we can take what we have as problems and throw them across the bridge to you guys to say, how can you help us solve them? That's how we're gonna get after it, is invigorating the small businesses in this nation that want to call, like have heard that call and want to help the Air Force, the DoD, fight the enemy. So that's kind of why we've accelerated and we've been really successful at that. So the timeline was right. We'll do our next SBIR sprint in December. So we'll take those proposals, we'll look at them, and then in December we'll put those on contract. And then you would then start either your phase 1 or your phase 2, depending on what you applied for if you're selected, and you would basically, start in January or latest February, and then that'd be like 3 months or a year. So it's relatively quick in comparison to a traditional timeline.
And the communication along the way from AFWERX, let me just say, is like outstanding. Like you hear from them at least once a week. You have a really good awareness of where they are in the process. And when you even get a phase 1 or a phase 2, they have like a weekly telecon, which I don't think you see with a lot of the other programs. And they're very committed to ensuring that you have all the information in front of you at one time.
So for how long does it take to get the SAMs done? Because we can't apply.
So it can take about 30 days. It depends. So you'll go to sam.gov first, right? And then you'll apply for your DUNS number and your cage on there, and that's where you'll input like your banking information. It will go in sam.gov in your application, and I will, like, when you apply and you put that bank account in there, I'm going to tell you as contracting, please do not change that after you get your contract awarded. Because what happens is that's what's in the DFAS, the payment system, and when you change it, it's really, really difficult for us to make sure it goes to the right bank account. So be committed to that bank account, because otherwise, when we want to give you that first payment, because you've submitted your preliminary
money, it doesn't matter who that customer is to you. You just tell us how you fix the problem. So when you do apply, the solicitation closes, and the goal is within about a week, we'll let you know if you've made it to the pitch session. And then when you pitch, we'll give you some information, maybe more about the problem of the customer, but it really doesn't matter. The more important piece is that you are ready to come in and, just like you would pitch a venture capital investor, pitch us your solution. That'll be generally about an hour, and then we'll decide if we want to move forward or not. And if we do, we'll work on the statement of work negotiations, again, making sure that we protect your IP, that we negotiate terms and conditions, and our goal is to within about 60 days have the contract done. So it's different. Again, not that one is bad and one is good, but it's just a different way for you to work with DoD if you have a different trajectory or a different focus for your company.
Can you give us an example of some of the problem statements that have come out and what kind of solutions that you're looking for?
Sure. Yeah, so on the DIU side, we have 5 focus areas, and that is commercial space. So think about anything that's either payload launching or satellite imagery, right? Government doesn't always have to launch a $5 billion satellite if there's a company that's doing that work that we can lease the data from. So space, of course, artificial intelligence, human systems, anything that touches the human body, whether it's medical or performance, whatever that may be, cyber, and then autonomy. Those are the 5 big buckets. Again, it's all on our website, nothing secret here. And then for the problems, it really ranges pretty dramatically. So the project that I worked in, it was a cybersecurity problem, and the entire solicitation was one sentence, and it was that the DoD is interested in software that can find vulnerabilities in software without source code and then patch those vulnerabilities. That's it. One sentence. If you got that, let us know. We'll go through the process. If not, you can submit anyway. We just probably won't take you to the pitch level. So there's that. There's been solicitations looking for different components of drones that we want to try to put together. We've had ones looking for ways to revamp a huge radar in Alaska with software-defined radios. We just have all kinds of different ones. We've had ways to, let's see, another one for 3D printing. I would say this is an important one. 3D printing of structures. So if you can be able to 3D print blast-resistant or an EMP-resistant structure, what can you deploy on a battlefield? That's interesting because that had an overlap with the SBIR project, just a little bit different. Really just a complete gamut, really. As long as it fits in one of those portfolio areas, it's really wide open.
So I've had the pleasure of working with NSIN for the last couple of years in a couple of different capacities, and a lot of the startups that I've seen that are successful within the DoD and these different branches of the military is that they don't design the solution for the military. Can we talk a little bit about some of the solutions you've seen that are designed for the Fortune 500 or private markets that make really great solutions for your organizations?
Yes. So we all really like Icon, which is a Austin-based company that does 3D printed homes, and they were targeting the humanitarian sector initially and have branched over into the defense market. And so they have been a SBIR recipient as well as a DIU CSO recipient, and then just an Allison NSIN favorite. So I do a lot of shout outs to them for some of my network. So,
and where she's saying they had the they were like in the humanitarian sector. When we were connected with them, our contracting officer Jorge Manresa, when he went and met with Icon, he said, "Wow, do you realize how long it takes to build a bare base when we deploy? It takes months. It takes months to build a runway, to build up a base. What your technology could bring to the battlefield is exactly what we need right now." So they weren't even in that headspace at that time. It was basically like, we could take your commercial solution that is going to do some amazing things for humanitarian issues stateside, and we could bring that to the world through the DoD. So we partnered with them, and then we got them on a phase 1. So it's just really been beautiful.
And to bring this full circle, what makes me really proud about the Icon technology is that I come from the Texas Air National Guard. So the Texas Air National Guard has an innovation team. The Chief of Innovation is in the audience, right there, Major Stoicky Alex Goldberg, over there. But we decided to partner with Icon. So through the SBIR process, we actually signed the MOU in Texas, right? Because one of the biggest missions that we have is humanitarian response. So how can we better serve the citizens of Texas during disasters, like the flooding that's happening in Houston, like Hurricane Harvey, right? So how can we better serve people? So that's what makes this icon thing just really, really special for me, because not only am I AFWERX, wearing an AFWERX hat and tech scouting this amazing technology, I was able to bring it in to the service that I'm a part of, and now it could potentially solve problems across the Air Force, and I couldn't be more proud.
And when Jen says MOU, she says it's called a memorandum, memorandum of understanding.
Yeah, so that's what you'll need if you get a SBIR, right? So when you find a customer within the Air Force, it's that MOU saying, you have a technology that solves a problem that I have. These are the milestones. So these are the things these are the wickets that you need to meet in order to meet our agreement. So that's what happens on the MOU.
So if there's a directive phase 2 being offered, to submit for the directive phase 2, you have to find an MOU before you even submit?
Yes.
Correct.
You're going to need to have that. What I was saying earlier was a government sponsor or a government customer. You're going to have that as a part of your submission package. So the Air Force has got to know that there's somebody within the Air Force that wants your technology. And they don't necessarily have to bring funding, because the SBIR office is going to bring that funding to the table, but they're going to sponsor you and help like care and feed you through your prototype. And at the end of that prototype, they're going to be the recipient of that prototype. So you'll want that MOU. So we're doing sometimes you'll call units that you think maybe would, love to have your tech, but they've never heard of SBIR, right? Before I was attached to this, that was not a word that I was familiar with, or an acronym. So we are trying our best to get out into the units and explain what the SBIR program is and how it can help the operational Air Force. Because we used to just do this in the Air Force Research Lab, but through Dr. Roper and Big Visions, they've opened that door and those floodgates. So we have to have it, in order to go to phase 2, that's why that sponsor is important. Because if you don't have a customer for your prototype, then you're never gonna go to phase 3. Right? We're going to throw 750 at somebody, and then it's going to sit on a shelf because no one was an early adopter of that technology and then want to field it.
And when you say sponsor, are you talking like flag level officer or field grade level officer, or the reserve company that's down the block?
Yeah, it can be anybody really. What will happen is when we go through the technical evaluation process, the technical team is going to call that sponsor on your letter. They're going to call them and touch base and say, hey, I've got a proposal for a SBIR for this. Are you on board? Do you understand what this means? If we, do you really need this tech? You sign this. So we're going to validate that through our technical evaluation and make sure that they understand what they've signed up for, because we're not going to try to shove you to somebody that really doesn't know what that means, and then you're just like floundering.
So on that MOU, I've got a customer operational unit out of Hurlburt. Their operational unit, they don't have R&D budget. Does the SBIR come out of their budget? Do they have to
so what the SBIR office will do is, SBIR gets $660 million a year, the Air Force SBIR, and they're going to bring those funds. So for the phase 2, your customer at Hurlburt, all you need from them is that signed MOU. They're going to bring that $750K from the SBIR funds, right? So that's kind of undiluted capital or
non-dilutive capital.
Yeah, sorry.
So we're not taking a cut of your business, right?
Right.
We just want to use your technology, and we still want you to pursue it commercially.
Right.
So we're not asking for anything but us to be able to use your technology.
And we're not asking that unit to put money up for them to just sign an MOU. There is matching and there's all this stuff that the unit can do, that we're crossing those bridges now to say, hey, during a phase 2, if the unit does bring some of their operational money, they're going to be a little bit more invested, right? And then that also gives you more capital to kind of go forth and take your technology, to the moon or wherever it's going. So, yeah, you'll kind of see there's like matching stuff that's still kind of new, but basically they just need to say, yes, we want to work with this company for 12 to 18 to 24 months. We will sponsor them, we'll be their government customer, and we will, yeah.
I would encourage you though, and it's really confusing if you don't have a DoD background, so again, email us if you have questions. When you apply to the special topic, to look like who the customer is or the command that they say it's written for. So one thing I think for our cohort, we've had 2 phase 1s now that was a little bit confusing, and then we didn't even realize until a couple weeks in is the The one opportunity was for what's called AETC, and that's like the Education and Training Command for the Air Force. And so when they were looking for phase 2, they really wanted you to find a customer that's within Air Education and Training Command. And so a lot of people had to have education on like what that is and who's part of that umbrella. So if you think like we did that you could apply to more than one special topic, maybe because you can't have 2 at one time anymore, it's to look and see, okay, what organization is it tied to? Because AETC is not Special Forces, right? So you don't want to put yourself in a position like we did with our garbage printer where you're not really aligned with a customer at that time. So you're not wasting your energy and you want to be as competitive as you can. The other thing they tell us is, I think when we got our phase 1, we sent out emails and was like, what can we 3D print for you for free? I probably should have been more targeted towards people that could actually buy our technology. And I still struggle with getting to the point where I'm like, and do you have any money if you like this print? But be shameless about it, like our peers do, which is great. We're getting better at it. So think about the DoD organization, how you would match. And then our understanding, the feedback we've gotten on the webinars is that if you can get someone that will, in their MOU, say, I would give this amount of money, that makes you a little bit more competitive if they're going to have to pick and choose. So it can be really helpful.
I was going to say also, don't be afraid to refer your government people back to the government if they're not familiar with the program. Because I've been doing some internal education too when I've been trying to align certain groups to explain, no, this isn't your budget. This is from a pot of money.
We're trying to get the word out, but it's slow, right? Just like with anything, because everyone kind of has their head down and they're in their own rabbit hole. But we're doing the best we can, especially on the contracting side, because a lot of people will call their contracting to say, hey, am I signing up to, like, this contractor's calling me, am I signing up to do a contract with them? And so sometimes even our contracting squadrons are like, I don't know what an MOU is, I can't spell SBIR. So we, as contracting, are trying to get the word out as to what is happening and how we're operationalizing SBIR, and we're allowing that $660 million to infiltrate into the operational side, and then we won't have what we call the valley of death, where all these phase 2s never find their a phase 3 in a production.
So I'm going to open it up for questions. I saw you in the back.
If there's a customer on board outside of the Air Force that's wanting to join in the SBIR for the 2-for-1 match, should we apply to phase 1 or just go straight to phase 2 for the 19.3 application?
I don't have a good answer for that, because like I was saying, I'm basically at the catch, right? So the technical team, they down select, they look at all those like wickets of the proposals, and then they send it to me to say award it, right? So I'm not really sure if they would look at other matching outside of the Air Force or other MOUs and give that a thumbs up or not. So
this question has come up a few times on our webinar, so me being like the lowest, like the one that makes all the mistakes. When we got one of our phase 1s, our perfect customer was SoftWorks, and I thought I could have a SoftWorks entity back my AFWERX phase 1.
That's exactly where I'm at.
Yeah, a lot of us, and then a couple of people in the soft community approached us. We're like, we really like this tech. What I was told at the time, and the rules are changing, as we go, and this is getting, a little bit more competitive and institutionalized now. We were told that there is a precedence where somebody had a customer that was in the Marines with a previous award, and they came in and it was a strong enough case, and the reason that they got funded was by AFWERX is they could see translation eventually also to the Air Force. It's just the Marines are willing to be like the guinea pig, if you will. I think it takes a little bit more overhead, and it's such a great opportunity if you can in any way find like the perfect Air Force customer up front. It definitely increases your odds. You can get that home run.
Let's say that's achieved. Would you apply still for phase 1 or direct to phase 2 if you could deliver within the calendar year before end of December?
Having done phase 1 twice, I would recommend doing the phase 1 because Jenn and all of these guys, Allison, Zach, everyone in the DoD ecosystem here locally is going to be advocating for you to also help you find an Air Force customer. And the phase 1 is so short. Basically, as soon as you get the phase 1, you're prepping for phase 2. So why wouldn't you take $50K for 8 weeks to help get the word out, to find additional customers to stack for that phase 2 to get a bigger match. That's how I would view it as a hustler, as opposed to going straight to the phase 2 and then risking not getting selected.
Yeah. So what I would recommend, if you have no prior knowledge of AFWERX and how we do business and the different ways to do business with us, every Monday, 12 Central, we do a call. And so if you go to our website, AFWERX, AFWERX.af.mil, everything we've talked about is on there. But specifically, because I always go to our hub, you can select the hubs. If you go to the AFWERX hub in Austin, there's a link right on the left-hand side for that webinar. It's on Zoom, I think. No, yeah, is that Zoom?
Mm-hmm.
Zoom? Okay, Zoom, it's a Zoom link, so it's just really easy for you to register. It's about an hour long. It gives you an opportunity at the end to pitch your tech, and it gets you into the ecosystem. So any challenges, SBIRs, things that are happening, you'll get the newsletters, you can ask questions, and once you've done that, then you have your connection. So I would highly, highly recommend that. Obviously we're around during Austin Startup Week, so please stop by the hub. We'll be around during the startup crawl. So anytime you see us, just you can pick our brains. But I would highly recommend going to that Monday, 12 Central call every Monday.
You guys have like a get out the vote, go register people, go out, get them their SAM's number kind of program?
So we don't, but the Small Business Administration, there is an entity called PTAC, and that's their sole job, is to help small businesses get all of their codes correct. Yeah, all that stuff. And what we've actually thought about.
It'll take you 2 weeks max.
Yeah.
Okay.
You gotta have a commercial bank account.
Yeah.
You gotta get your DUNS number and you can fast track it.
Yeah.
And then just like you said, make sure you pick an address that doesn't change and you're good.
Don't pay money.
Well, you should have a website too, but that's
Yeah.
Okay. AFWERX also has a one-pager that's like the idiot's guide to this, and literally here's the 7 steps by which to apply.
Okay.
I think it does say it takes 15 minutes, but that's not true.
Yeah.
But the steps are great.
I think our website was just updated. I think Jordan, who's our social media director right there, she's amazing. I think she told me that the step-by-steps now on the website. So just go to industry. Yeah. I think we're trying to make it as easy as possible. Yeah.
I would be remiss to not say, you have a person that is not an Air Force customer, or even if they are, also say, hey, get in touch with DIU and let them know if you have a problem, because our purpose, right? We're an Office of Secretary of Defense organization. Our goal in life is to say, that thing that you're selling to the Air Force probably will also solve problems for the Marines and the Army and the Navy, and that's our goal, is to have a single commercial contract with you that anyone in the DoD can buy from. Now again, these are big problems that need to be solved, right? We can't say we need a specific solution, but again, if they're coming to you with problems, they probably don't know about DIU. There's just not that many of us, so please let them know. And our website has ways to get in touch with us, either yourself or your DoD contact, and please.
Same question though, the budget comes out of their budget?
It depends. Generally, we do want the DoD customer to put up some funding, but again, there's no specific rule, because oftentimes the people with the most challenging problems are not the ones that have the R&D money. But then you have people with R&D money that would love to solve problems, but they don't have any like real user problems. And so that's again, we don't think that's something you should have to navigate yourself. So we abstract all that from you. We say, if you can solve this problem, go for it. We'll figure out the problems and solutions to customers and money and make it simple for you.
And Army Applications Lab, which you can go to the Army Futures Command website, they have the same type of information. So I would say, look at all of our stuff. Hopefully it's helpful to you, but apply to any and all. That's what I'd recommend.
So here's an off-the-wall question, but maybe a real scenario. So you're a small company, smaller than the 10 to Fortune 500 that you mentioned, and you're partnering with other companies, maybe partnering with academia, you get your teaming agreements. Have you seen those type of proposals for SBIRs and phase 1s, phase 2s, with the teaming agreements? And so that, because some of us are smaller than small, right? And we're trying to, but we know that we see the gap, we know the technology, we try to cobble together the team and go in on it together. Is that a viable approach?
For sure.
We're teamed on our NSF SBIR with Michigan Technical University. I can tell you, I did not feel like a very good CEO when I went to the kickoff event in DC 2 springs ago, and we're sitting at these round tables, and half of the people at our table were still in school. Like, and 2 of them were going to the University of Texas, and they're working like on a better shower head. And they had heard about SBIR and gone through all the hoops and got the same award we did, except I did it 2 years later because I missed a deadline and got rejected previously. And I'm like, these kids have it all figured out. My company was 5 years old before I figured out this free money track. So yeah, it runs the gamut.
Yeah, we actually, encourage teaming, right? Because if you can bring, our goal is to solve that entrepreneur, the airman, the big A airman's problem with what you have. So if it takes you teaming, then we're all about that. So what we try to focus on is small businesses, but we don't limit to, we do contracts with whoever, but we really are focused with small emerging businesses. And if it takes you and another small business to bring that solution, we're all about that.
Also, don't be shy to ask for letters of support. We write them for other companies, but maybe you're not going to team and there's no financial exchange, but you know someone that could be a good advocate to say, yes, there's a real need and I'm in the ecosystem and I can validate you. Go ahead and get those because that does help, having been a reviewer myself.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Do international companies have restrictions for applying to these type of grants?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Do international companies have restrictions for applying to these types of
You
grants?
do not for us. It depends on solicitation. So we've actually awarded to European companies. I would offer maybe not every country, but certainly you do not have to be a U.S. company to respond. Well, certainly to respond, but we have made it work. It just depends on.
But they have to be registered, right, with the
Oh yeah, there is a NATO, where it's called NATO.
I don't know if they need a SN endorsement. I mean, we still have to be able to do business with the federal government.
Yeah.
But just because you're a German company doesn't mean
International companies can be used in SAM.
Right. Yeah, for us that doesn't necessarily limit you. Depends on the sometimes it'll say US only, but again we're very upfront with that on our solicitations.
And I'm not sure if DIU is different than us, but the talking point that I have is that you have to be 51% US owned for us. Don't know if that's across the board. I just know that for AFWERX that's our shtick. Yeah, for SBIR.
For SBIR.
Yeah, 51% American owned. Doesn't mean you can't be foreign and have that 49%.
And I've definitely worked places where we've awarded contracts to foreign companies. So not to speak, say the bad word of traditional government contracting, but you can in some cases receive traditional contracts as a foreign company. However, you won't have an approved accounting system, so it'll have to be a firm fixed price or some sort of grant or challenge.
I think, just kind of gonna circle back on my question, if our solution does not solve a problem at any of the branches, is it not, but we still use veteran employees, is that not possible to get an SBIR grant, or is it a case-by-case basis depending on the problem we're solving for them?
Probably depending on.
I think it's depending on the problem, but if you can't find a customer, then you're gonna go nowhere, right?
Well,
you might
have a customer, but it's not in the military.
Oh, I'm sure, right? Because it's a government grant.
I don't know if our service will be sold into the back into the military, and that's what I
Sure.
keep saying, that y'all need a customer in the military
Yeah,
grant.
that's a really good question. Because the government grant, I don't want to be, my response to be ignorant, but I would assume that, if you're serving the government in some capacity.
So a lot of the topics are tech focused.
Yeah.
So you will be seeking topics based on what technologies you provide.
Yeah.
So if employment of veterans is what you're offering, then I would check the VA and see if there's any other kind of incentive programs that way. If you don't have a technology that is being called for, so that, because I know I've talked to you, so I know what your company
Yeah,
is.
we have an app, but I don't know how people would apply with it. Statistics tracking, but y'all probably have a million of them, so.
So it would, and like you said, if there is a logistics piece to it, then you could certainly showcase what you're tracking, because definitely tracking of items is a very real problem.
Yeah,
I've actually seen some problems out of Texas. People are looking to figure out how to track people in some of the vehicles. So
Yeah.
So DLA, DLA and DISA and those types, do they have their own SBIRs?
DARPA that has.
I know
DARPA
got their
does.
own.
I haven't seen a deal. I watch this
So
pretty
would it all fall
closely.
under OSD,
Yeah, I
like that,
haven't-
or would it be?
The upside is there's what's called the SBIR Roadshow.
Yeah.
And both of these problem sets would be really good candidates to do that. And what's cool is during the SBI Roadshow, they'll set up like stations with multiple agencies, and you can set up appointments and meet like with the program manager. And then they make recommendations and intros for you. I've done a couple of them now here and in Puerto Rico. They were really helpful. I would recommend that both of you check those out. And then maybe check out like NIH and NSF. NIH has a lot. So that might be a good backdoor too.
Any more questions? All right, I have one final question for all of you. How did you get involved with startups working for the government? That's great. Because you were all on active duty or in the foreign service. Like, how did you end up here?
I'll start because I just say it's like an act of God thing. I went through the MSCC program through Macomb School, so Masters in Science, Technology, and Commercialization program in 2015, graduated in 16, and then went back to life. And I didn't know what I was going to do with it, but I was so interested because it introduced me to entrepreneurialism, the startup scene, and it just made me really excited. And I went back to life, and all of a sudden Army Futures Command was coming to Austin. And I was out at Camp Mabry. I'm a under normal circumstances, I'm a federal technician for the Texas Military Department. And so I'm really interested in what Army Futures Command is doing, because this is innovation and it's really exciting. At the same time, Texas and the Air National Guard was starting to really focus on innovation. So there's this thing called Squadron Innovation Funds. So every wing within the Air Force gets $100,000 every single year to do whatever they want, innovation related, right? And so that started maybe a year or 2 years ago. And so all of a sudden I became the chief of innovation for my wing, and Major Goldberg, who's sitting back there, he kind of changed my life because he reached out and he said, is anybody interested in working at AFWERX and doing this innovation, Air Force innovation in Austin, Texas? I live in Austin, Texas. I'm passionate about innovation and I love the Air Force. And so it was just like all my stars aligned in August of last year. So that's kind of how I got here, and I could not be just more thrilled. So that's my story. Hopefully everyone else is just as great. But I'm a proud Longhorn.
What? Okay, so like I said, I'm active duty, so I'm actually stationed at Randolph. And last summer, when did PTN start? Pilot Training Next? August of 17. So Pilot Training Next is an initiative to learn how to, it's kind of an experiment, how to train undergraduate pilot training or trainees faster, because it takes about a year and they wanted to try to cut that time. And they actually house that experiment here in Austin at the Bergstrom Airport, at an Army facility, right?
Texas Military Department facility.
Yes. So there were some true champions that were charged with this problem, and they were basically faced with how do they do this, and how do they find a contracting arm, and how do they do this. So I happen to be on the Air Education and Training Command, and I'm going to give a lot of acronyms. The Air Force Air Force Installation Contracting Agency staff. So here PTN standing up for Air Education and Training Command, and they were like, how do we do contracts? And I was able to kind of come up. I actually met Zach at a meeting with the PTN program managers, and it kind of all happened from there. It was like I was kind of brought in, and it was like, how do we help PTN? And then I didn't immediately get to help them because I had to do other things for the squadron. And they actually hired, if you've ever heard of Lieutenant Colonel Jorge Manresa, we kind of call him the Oracle. He's a reservist, so here's total force again. He was brought on orders soon after PTN started, and he was the contracting liaison for AATC and AFWERX, and he's stationed up here in Austin. Yeah. He was running hard, and in January of this year, he was kind of task saturated, being the one sole contracting person for all things AFWERX innovation in Austin, and kind of all things AFWERX contracting, because they didn't have a contracting officer, they kind of still don't. So I went to my boss and I said, sir, when I get done serving in this interim flight chief duty, I would love to work with Colonel Manresa as his deputy. And my boss said, what? And I said, yes. So he said, all right, we'll see how it goes. So fast forward 10 months, he was actually supposed to sit on this panel. I was your plan B for Allison, but he couldn't be here tonight. He couldn't be here tonight, and I said, sure, I'll step up and I'll be on the panel for him. So now I am his deputy, and kind of like Jen said, the stars aligned, and I am truly passionate when I get to help these SBIR companies like work through the bureaucracy that is wider workflow. That'll be your nemesis. But you guys get those payments, you know, that makes me really, really happy, because I know that I am, you know, helping the national security strategy, and we're getting the warfighter what they need to do their job. Because I was deployed in 17 with special operations, and just seeing how hard it was for them to get what they need, it was mind-boggling. So how now being able to be attached to, you know, true companies that are bringing great things to the fight, and being able to be at the face of that is really amazing. So that's my story.
So I started working in the startup community on behalf of the U.S. government in Israel. And so I was really excited to just see all the creative thought and being able to deliver quickly technologies to end users. And I loved it so much, I actually left the U.S. government for a while and worked at an investment firm. And then I came back as faculty for NPS, teaching some of the students on how to integrate and startup technology to military operations. NPS is the Naval Postgraduate School, which is exactly what it
Thanks,
sounds like.
We've covered every service at this point.
And then I was at NPS but had the opportunity to move to Austin, and that's where all the nice people come from. And I said, oh, I gotta go there, and I gotta work in the startup community. And it hasn't been a disappointment, so.
It was a complete accident for me. I had gone to grad school in Austin, moved to DC, lived the dream, NSA, CIA, Army, Afghanistan.
What is that?
They're good listeners. I worked across the government. I've seen incompetence and irrelevance at every level of the government. And most recently at the Pentagon, I worked on the Snowden compromise, and then I'd worked on writing future cyber warfare strategy for the Air Force. Needless to say, we have some issues. So I was like, I'm leaving all this, I'm going back to Austin. I don't want to deal with traffic in cold weather. And I get to Austin in September of 2016, lo and behold, they had just established the Defense Innovation Unit experimental. Like, oh my God, this I have to do this. Like, this is the thing that will fix all of these problems I've seen since I enlisted in 2001. So it's funny how this works. I go to Austin Startup Week in 2016, and there was a panel, and there was someone on that panel named Samantha Snabes, who had been personally selected by the Secretary of Defense, true story, to represent DIUX when it was established. So I go, I listen, she says amazing things, I'm like, oh my God, I have to go talk to this girl. And I essentially just threw myself at her to say, hey, I have to do this.
Life's careful.
No,
I feel the same way. I made her be my friend.
Well, in the sense of like, I have to do this, right? Like either let's find a way to do this or get a restraining order. Like it's just so important for the nation that we do this. And again, long story, maybe long story long, I was able to start working. I'm a reservist now in the Air Force, formerly
Now
Army.
he is the DIU.
The DIU. Well,
They cut the X.
Started.
The X is silent.
Yeah, the X was still there, it's just silent and invisible. But I started working 2016 again as a reservist because of Samantha, and it's just been an amazing ride, and it completely changed my life. And maybe that's the one piece of advice is certainly I never in a million years sort of thought I would be in this space at this time in life, but I couldn't be happier that I am. So thanks, Samantha.
Thanks, Zach. That's very nice. Zach is really a badass. We all know it. He's totally qualified. He's got a stick. Yeah, so I wanted to be an astronaut, was rejected a couple times, and joined the military in my lunch hour at NASA. So I enlisted when I was 29. I can tell you again what not to do. Please talk to me. My unit's hiring. I think AFWERX might be too. Is DIU? Can't speak for y'all.
NSIN is
Yeah.
hiring, if you look
We
on
can,
LinkedIn.
it's not over, and there's waivers for everything. It's awesome. But yeah, highly recommend it. Best choice I ever made. And you can have your cake and eat it too, being in the startup life and serving your country, which is really awesome.
And one more thing I want to mention is, no offense, Zach, but look at this panel. I mean, how many women do you see doing work? Like, this is incredible.
I've always wanted to be the diversity.
That's what I
You were three only
I was going to say, for all the women entrepreneurs out there, these people in the exec. Yeah, these are the people you interact with. There are women in this space.
Well, thank you all so much for being here tonight. Thank you for sharing all this information with the audience, and good luck to all of you entrepreneurs. We still have time, so feel free to chat with them afterwards. And I'd like to thank you again for coming here tonight. Thanks.